and learn together. So you all are welcome. We won't force you, but you're all welcome to move a little closer to each other, move a little closer to the front. Dr. Sharps is our speaker. He does not bite, he promised me. So yes, he confirmed. So he does not bite, so you are all safe to move forward, move a little closer so we can learn together. The other item is that we want this to be an interactive environment. So Dr. Sharps is going to be speaking, and we're not going to be asking questions during the time, but we are going to have opportunity to write down our questions, and in the nights that are going to be following, he will be answering those questions. So if you have questions that come up while he's speaking, things that come to your mind, we encourage you to write down those questions on the index cards that are being passed out right now, and then hand them in at the back at the end of our sessions, and we will be sure to read out your questions, and Dr. Sharps will do his best to answer all of them in the coming nights. So just before we begin today, a brief introduction. Dr. Sharps actually isn't a stranger to us here, but for those of you who do not know him or have met him before, Dr. Jim Sharps is a naturopathic doctor with additional doctorates in herbal medicine and nutritional science. In addition to his private practice in Columbia, Maryland, with an on-site and telephone consultation, he is the president and chief executive officer of the International Institute of Original Medicine. It's a distance learning school which offers both certificates and degree programs. We are very excited to have Dr. Sharps here, and as he speaks to us, again, put on your thinking caps, please write down your questions, and let's learn together. Have a great evening.
Good evening. And thank you for coming out on this beautiful, balmy Monday evening. There's so many things you can be doing on a Monday afternoon, a beautiful day like this. And thank you so much for coming out and helping me to have a lot of fun, because I can't think of anything that I like doing more than talking about my favorite topic, the most powerful system known to man for preventing and reversing all chronic degenerative diseases. This is the first of the 7 presentations, and this is the foundational presentation. It's the most important one. It goes under various topics. As you can see, today we're calling it, can we switch this over? Yes, the irrefutable evidence for the superiority of the plant-based diet. Irrefutable evidence. That means that you can't refute it. And at the end of this, you'll see that there is not a diet that's more superior than this. Now, you have the index cards. If you know of anything, or if there's anything that I need to check out to validate or to compare against, please let me know, and I'll be happy to update this. But this is part of the most powerful system known to man. It's the foundational presentation. It goes under other titles, Let Food Be Your Medicine. But this is the foundational presentation for all of the other topics that I cover. The topics that we're going to be covering, we're going to cover this, and we're going to talk about food combining tomorrow. With these 2 things, you will find out how to actually add 15 to 30 productive years to your life, just with some of these principles. And then we're going to talk about also how you can prevent and reverse things like Ebola, cancer, heart disease, and even how to improve your brain function. How you can avoid Alzheimer's, in some cases even reverse it. We're going to talk about children issues. But this is the foundational presentation. I like to also say that not only will it add 15 to 30 productive years to your life, but you will actually, in this 45 minutes that we're going to spend together, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about nutrition. If there's anything you need to know that I don't tell you about in these 45 minutes, write them down on the card. But I'm going to tell you everything you need to know. Let's start out and talk about the 7 major requirements that the body has to have. You have to have this or you can't survive. You have to get it from food or from some source. You need water, you need carbohydrates, you need amino acids, you need fatty acids, you need vitamins, you need minerals, and you need enzymes. That is what makes the machinery work of the human body. Now, to have some context, what we need to talk about is a health continuum, so that we can see how does this irrefutable evidence for the plant-based diet, how does that fit into a health continuum? And the health continuum basically goes from wellness to illness. And you can see, we started out, we're given a lot of vitality. You ever see a little kid, they bouncy, they have all this energy? Then as we get older, we kind of slow up, and we lose a lot of that. And we move from that dynamic vitality all the way over to debilitating illness. Now, we're going to learn some things about how to prevent and avoid those things. But let's look at this health continuum and then talk about this superior diet. And on this continuum, from wellness to illness, there are basically 4 categories of health. The dynamic vitality, optimum health, suboptimum health, and debilitating illness. And you see I have some percentages here. And you can roughly divide the population by percentage in these different groups. Now just make a mental note of what percentage you think fit into each of those categories. Debilitating illness, optimal health, suboptimal health, and debilitating illness. And this is what it basically boils down to. It's about 5% of the population fits into this dynamic vitality. These are people that you hate. They can even drink and they can do all kinds of things. They live a long time. But very few people fit into that category. Quite frankly, if they follow the principles that we're talking about, they will have much more vitality and they'll actually perform better. But there are some people that are just genetically blessed. I'm not one of those. I'm one of those people that was blessed with poor health. That's how I got into this to begin with. Then you have, I'm sorry, kind of bounced over there. What I wanted to show is then you have this area, optimum health. You see this guy's pretty happy. This in this category, this 15 to 20%, this is where you see the people that are going to be following the principles that we're going to talk about, the dietary principles. And you'll see why. We'll put some context around that. And then over here, this might surprise you, but 70 to 75% of the population fits into this category of suboptimal health. It's everything from acne, AIDS, to zits, to cancer, all chronic degenerative diseases, Alzheimer's, everything, including some mild trauma. And then there's this area of debilitating illness. And this category is a category where, for genetic or other reasons, they basically really need the conventional medicine technology, which is the most superior technology in the world for trauma. So these are the categories, and what I want to point out is in this category over here, on the left, these first 2 categories, these are the people that prosper from and are affected by lifestyle medicine. And these people are unfortunately usually pursuing traditional medicine. And people in this area will never, now if you know of some instances where it's not true, let me know. They will never get into this area without pursuing some of the things that we're going to be talking about today and the next few days. They can manage their processes, but they will never have optimal to dynamic vitality, optimal health to dynamic vitality, unless they get into the lifestyle medicine area. So, what I propose for this is to go through what is called the hierarchy of nutrients in order to go through this proposal of this irrefutable evidence for the superiority of the plant-based diet. Now, what I like about this is, now I've been in practice, I worked with IBM for over 20 years, and then I switched over, and I've been doing this for over 20 years now. And a lot of times in my practice, I run a school, a lot of times people always say, what about this supplement? What about this food? What about that food? This is a way of looking at food so that you can talk intelligently to somebody with a 3rd grade education with common sense, to somebody with multiple doctorates. It basically is a paradigm. It's basically a pattern of looking at diet and putting all foods, anything you can put in your mouth, into 5 different food categories. And being able to rank them in terms of superiority of that food, in terms of, remember the mechanisms we talked about? The water, the carbohydrates, the amino acids. What is the best way of providing those materials for the body for being able to experience absolutely outrageous health. So, with that, let's look at 4 fundamental principles. 4 fundamental principles, okay? In terms of developing this hierarchy of nutrients and showing that it is providing this irrefutable evidence for the superiority of the plant-based diet. And the first element on there, the first principle, is God wants us to thrive, not just survive. If you read John 10, it basically says, I am come that you have health, that they may have health, that they may have it more abundantly. He wants us to thrive. The second principle, God gives us what we need in the highest quantity. A loving God would do that. He wouldn't make it very difficult for us. He wouldn't squirrel it away and make us play hide and go seek. So he provides it in the highest quantity. And then the third thing, he gives us what we need in the easiest available form. And then the fourth principle is God provides all our nutritional needs. Okay? So those are the principles that we're going to look at in terms of establishing this hierarchy of nutrients. A lot of times when I do this, and if you look at, there's a couple of presentations where it's called Let Food Be Your Medicine. It's interactive, and we have a lot of fun in developing this because it's interesting what people's perspective is in terms of what your body really needs. So in terms of this hierarchy of nutrients, we're going to look at food, anything you can put in your mouth, in terms of the high quality to the low quality. Anything, all kinds of foods. Where do they fit? And then, as I said, any supplement, any kind of food, you can see how I would be. It's interesting. I've done this. This has been my foundational presentation for over 20 years. People still call me, and then they say, what about this, such and such? And I ask the question, well, where does it fit? And then the answer just jumps out at you. So it's a very easy way of being able to answer a lot of those questions. So with that, now some of you, since this is my foundational presentation, no matter what series, I just finished a 15 series presentation. Incidentally, it's on the website if you want to hear it, an audio presentation. No matter what series I do, if it's only 3, I always want to do this because it's so important, it's so powerful that this is the foundational presentation. And so some of you might have seen pieces of this, so those of you who have seen it, don't jump out and answer too quickly. But what is the first and most important nutrient? Think about it. What's the first and most important nutrient? There's all kinds of answers that people come out with. They come up with carbohydrates or protein, essential fatty acids. I did this in front of a Chinese audience once, and I had an interpreter, and the answer came out rice. It is abundantly supplied and easily available, so they were on the right track. But the first and most important nutrient is air. Air. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. God breathed into his nostrils breath. It's the first and most important nutrient. One of the things that you'll appreciate about this hierarchy of nutrients, you'll see it's all right there in Genesis 1 and 2. All of that, God gave it all to us and prepared it for man. And you'll see how God put all of these things in place so that we can thrive and not just survive before he even created man. But the first and most important nutrient is air. Okay? And so now you got the feel for it. The second most important nutrient is, of course, water. Okay? And the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. Genesis 1:2. If thou knewest the gift of God, he would have given thee living water. Water is the most important nutrient that we actually voluntarily take in. See, air, it's so important, it's so easy that you don't even have to look for it. You can't even hide from it. Even in a closet, the air is there. Water, you have to actually do something intentional. Okay? But water, think about it. What planet are we designed for? We're designed to live on Earth. I don't know why people are running up to look at Mars or Venus, any of those other kind of places. This planet is 70 to 75% water. What is the human body? 70 to 75% water. We're an exact template of this planet. We were designed for this planet. So people are buying all these tickets to go. I want to stay here because this is what I was designed for. And water, everything out there is screaming what our needs are and what will give us a dynamic vitality. Water is so important that no life can exist without water. All body functions required. And we can use it therapeutically and nutritionally and healthfully, both internally and externally. I'm going to show you some very powerful ways of using water therapy for preventing and reversing Ebola, cancer, high blood pressure, and a whole host of other chronic degenerative diseases. It's a very powerful feature. What's next? Kind of got a feel for this? Anybody have an idea what's the next most important nutrient is? That's it. Sunlight. Exactly right. Sunlight. And God said, let there be light. You notice, Genesis 1, 2, and 3, air, water, and sunlight. You probably never thought about it that way, but, let there be light. He maketh his sun to rise on the evil and the good. I'm so glad that he kept me in here, too. Not just you good guys. Us evil people will get the sunlight. So sunlight, again, another very important feature. We're going to talk about this. On Wednesday, we're going to talk about the most powerful system known to man for reversing and for preventing and reversing all diseases. And so we're going to talk in a little bit more detail about some of these things. But now we're just talking about food here. These are nutrients that you have to have to thrive, to live, to function. Okay, what's the next most important nutrient? This is the first food group, incidentally, right? Okay, the last one is earth, the dirt. Okay? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Okay? And so these are the basic nutrients. You can't live without any of these. I don't know what they're going to do up on Venus or Mars. They don't have earth dirt, but there's minerals. So I don't know unless they're going to drag a Safeway or Giant up there with, or some kind of a food mart. So some of you are saying, I know why that guy is so skinny. All this air, water, sunlight, and dirt. Where's the beef? The guy doesn't even need teeth. Give me something to chew on. Okay, when you start chewing, you're actually going to the second food group. And what's the first and most important nutrient in the second food group? Bacon, eggs, Cheetos, vegetables. Vegetables is a very good answer. Peanuts, corn, rice. Actually, the first and most important nutrient is fruit. God said, behold, I have given you every herb-bearing seed and every tree in which is the fruit. To you it shall be for meat. He didn't say pork chops. He didn't say hamburgers, McDonald's. No, this is our meat. This is the first and most important. It's powerful food. Genesis 1:29. Now let's kind of elaborate on this a little. Let's look at this. Okay, there's one chart before okay, here it is. Let's look at let's look at fruit a little closer, okay? And how it meets our requirements for the basic nutrients. Remember we said we can't live without air, water, sunlight, and earth. Let's look at fruit. Let's dissect it and see how that works. In fruit, where do we get all of our oxygen from? Oh, it comes from the plants. The leaves of the trees are the lungs of the planet. Okay? Vegetation, what do they need for their structural integrity? They need carbon dioxide. What do we expel? Carbon dioxide. What do they expel? They expel oxygen. It's a perfect synergistic relationship. So fruit and the leaves of those trees help to provide the oxygen. Fruit are very high in water content. Most fruit are over 80% water. Remember, our requirements is 70 to 75% water. As a matter of fact, a lot of people who have Alzheimer's and brain dysfunction, what they find is that the brain is becoming dehydrated. Now, it's very difficult to dehydrate the brain. The brain, we're going to talk about that a lot Sunday, but essentially it's so important that it will get its water. We have to be severely dehydrated before the brain starts giving out. So it takes years of abuse for some of the issues that we're going to be talking about. Now, sunlight is locked into every seed. And plants can do something, we can do something that angels can't do, right? We can reproduce, angels can't. It's a fixed number. God created, and that's it. We can reproduce. But plants can do something that we can't do. They can eat dirt. So all those nutrients that are in there, with the water and the air and the sunlight going down, and those roots digging deep down, and it will eat up all those minerals and all those nutrients in the earth to put into this blossoming plant. Okay? So fruit provides all the basic nutrients in the highest quantity. Remember? Easiest, designed in the original plan for man to thrive. Okay? No other food does it better than fruit. It's so powerful, so easily available. We tend to take it for granted. We don't even treat it as a food, just like most people take air for granted. Can't live without it. And so powerful that we don't have to even do anything. As a matter of fact, fruit is so easy that all you have to do is sit under a tree, apple fall on you, it's lunchtime. Doesn't require any work. It's the easiest. This is fast food. This is the best, the highest quality fast food you can get. It's better than French fries. It's better than chicken McNuggets, the Big Mac, Little Mac, Medium Mac. All of those. It's very fast, very nutrient. Okay, now let's look at another context as we look at the importance and this irrefutable evidence for the superiority of the plant-based diet. In Genesis 2:7, it basically said that God took earth from mud, he formed Adam, and he breathed into him the breath of life. So we're all, anybody dirty people? We're all dirty people. We're all from dirt. We're from dirt. Okay, so we're made from dirt. And then God breathed life into us. And then, what did he do after that? What he did was he said, okay, this dirt that I made you out of, I'm going to provide a plant, a manufacturing facility. If he was in the business of making cars, he'd have a Ford plant or a GE plant, have all these parts there, and he'd assemble them into these nice, high-functioning cars. What he did was he took all of that dirt that he made us out of, and he created a manufacturing facility called a fruit. And so fruit is a gift of life. Plant foods are God's manufacturing facilities that he provided for sustaining mankind after he formed man from the dust of the earth and breathed into him the breath of life and gave us plants to continue and to maintain this awesome creation. A whole new perspective it gives you on food when you look at it from this standpoint. Now, there are manufacturing facilities, that's General Mills and Kellogg's and all these guys, and they manufacture stuff, and they make these foods through extrusion processes and all that other kind of stuff. But I would submit to you that there is irrefutable evidence of the superiority of this food in terms of providing everything that we need. So the hierarchy of nutrients is directly related to the food's ability to provide the highest quality nutrients. Let's look at that again. The hierarchy of nutrients, okay, is directly related to food's ability to provide the highest quality nutrients for outrageous, not for just making it, not for surviving, but for outrageous health. And so now the rest of it is very easy. I finished out the second food group. Now, vegetables are also do a lot of those things, but it doesn't have as much water as fruit, does it? So you can see now how the hierarchy of nutrients is basically based off of these fundamental principles that I just laid out. Okay? Now, nuts and seeds are really botanically a fruit, right? Fruit are seeds, seed-bearing plants with a soft shell, like an apple has the seeds in the middle, and then they have all that soft, fluffy, high-water content, fiber and other things in there. Lots of water, though. Nuts and seeds have a hard shell. And even here, this follows, the reason why it's third on there is because remember we said abundantly supplied, easily available? Nuts and seeds in the beginning of time, we didn't have nutcrackers. So Adam had to take 2 rocks. And for the soft shell nuts and seeds, he didn't have to work too hard. Like the pecans, he can peel it real easy. The harder ones, the walnut, he had to work hard. So you had to work a little bit harder. So it wasn't as easy available, which is a way of telling you that nuts and seeds with a hard shell, we should eat sparingly. Those with a soft shell, we can eat a little bit more. Can you see now when people start asking me questions, where does this fit in terms of my health, my vitality, this health issue I'm having, that health issue? You can see it starts to fit in a very powerful way. So then we can kind of quickly go through these next few categories. What do you think the third category is? So we've just gone through food group 1, food group 2, food group 3. Anybody want to hazard a guess? You're right. Grains and legumes. Anybody was thinking that? Okay, I'm going to come back to this concept. Now, grains and legumes, their value clearly is that they have long shelf life. And they are abundantly supplied. But they're not high water content. It does have nutrients in it. Okay? So you can start to see it doesn't supply the basic nutrients, air, water, sunlight, as powerfully as this category over here. But it does have long shelf life. So in times of flood, famine, and warfare, even Joseph became popular because he said, let's hold those grains. Store up enough for 7 years. So in those 7 lean famine years, you can survive. But it's not a thriving food. It never was. And for other reasons, because they've been so hybridized and genetically modified, people are actually gluten intolerant and all those other kind of things. So these foods have been more prone to being modified, where these are pretty much, see, it's hard to make changes to air. You know, you can't make new air. You can't make new water. You can't make new sun. You can't make new earth. Now, people try it. And so the further you get away from the basic nutrients, the easier it is for man to poke around and see if they can give God a little bit of help. Because even though he did all of this stuff in Genesis, man wants to come along and say, let me help you make it better. Now, I can't find anything in the Bible, any place, where after, and I've looked, I hope you can help me find it, because I really want to get away from this hierarchy of nutrients. I want to get back to my old bacon and eggs and grits with the lathered butter. I really want to go back there. Help me to find a rationale. But as I go through this, I can't find any place after Genesis. Remember I said all of Genesis 1 and 2? And in Genesis 1:31, it said, God looked at all that he created, and he saw that it was somewhat good. Now, it was very good. Now, I've searched every single verse. I've read the Bible multiple times, different versions. I even have a Greek and Hebrew translation. I can't find any place where he called together Moses, Abraham, Isaiah, any of those guys, and called a task force, a little meeting, and said, hey guys, come over and help me to make it better. Yet, you have these manufacturing facilities out there for foods that are providing something out there, and they've deceived us. So essentially, these are good. Now, legumes, you see, that's a lot of people. And we'll talk about protein for a quick minute at the end of this. They think that they need to eat beans for their protein. Some people are going to be jettisoned into the promised land because of all the gas and bloating that they're getting, eating all those beans that they don't like, their body doesn't like it. Beans have a covering that basically you don't have an enzyme to break down. And so if you don't prepare them right and water them, get rid of that hemicellulose covering, it creates a lot of gastrointestinal distress. So those of you who are fighting to get all this protein, we'll talk about that for a quick minute if we have time at the end. That's one of the most misleading things. If you notice, I don't have protein in the front of this. I have fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds. But this is part of a good diet. Okay? That's the next category. Okay, a lot of you probably figured it out by now. The next category is your flesh foods and your dairy. And this actually, this guy has a question mark because everybody's telling him you need all of this meat and dairy and all of this, where's the beef? You need this for protein, and you need this complete protein. This has all 22 amino acids, all these kinds of things. But this is actually a part of a poor diet, and we'll come back to that if time allows. And then the last category is processed and refined foods. Now, the good news is these first four categories, God has something to do with. This last category, he had nothing to do with. This is everything that comes in a box, can, or bottle. Okay? And basically, usually when I get to the end of this, one of the questions that usually come up is, how do you eat after this? And even when you go to Giant, even when you go to Safeway, they're talking about the hierarchy of nutrients in a very subtle fashion. When you go to the supermarket, you should be doing 80% of your shopping around the edges and only 20% in the aisles. And if you do that, and if you do it according to the hierarchy of nutrients, the only thing you will need in the aisles is toilet paper. And if you do it the other way, the only thing you won't need in the aisles is toilet paper, because you'll be so blocked up and so constipated and glued up that you won't have any kind of motility. Okay, so even the supermarket is screaming out what we should be doing. So let's go back to our context. And so what you see here with the hierarchy of nutrients, remember we talked about the continuum? For perfect health and good health, they're in this area. And then, this is kind of right in the middle. And then as you start getting into this area, that's when you get into that 70 to 75% of the issues. Okay? So, how do you use this in a practical way? What's the good news about this? The good news is, with the hierarchy of nutrients, here it is. Here's that continuum. No matter where you are, see this guy down here? He's having a little bit of a problem. If based on your requirements and your capacity, some of us have high IQs. In my book, I have this health quotient. You might want to take that little test. It has all the things that maximize health on one side and things that minimize health on the other side. You subtract one from the other, and you get your HQ as opposed to an IQ, or your health quotient. But right here, based on your requirements and your capacities, and even if you have dynamic vitality, and you're down here, you'll even go to higher ground. And the point is that if you chip away Based on your requirements and capacities, you can move up the chart from the suboptimal health up to optimal to dynamic vitality. Now, some people say, well, you know, I eat right, I do this, that, and the other. I have clients, and a lot of them, they keep coming back, and they say, well, I'm doing everything perfect. Well, first of all, I don't know anybody that's doing it perfect. Most people have a very difficult time in the moral law and in the health law. We just natural lawbreakers. Even when we don't want to. It's like Paul, I do what I don't want to do, and the things I want to do, I don't do, and the things I don't want to do, I can really identify with Paul. There's a thing in Ecclesiastes, I think it's 8:11 or 11:8, it basically says, because God doesn't pass judgment on us immediately, that's why we continue to, fail, continue to break the law. And so, first of all, I don't know anybody who's doing the health law perfectly, including me. I try the best I can, and I don't even like to talk about some of my shortfalls because then somebody wants to scratch my eyes out because they're trying to get to those compromised areas. But we all fall short. And the point is, I want to make a spiritual statement here. This is going to give you physical vitality. I've come to the conclusion that even if it made me sick, if God said to do it this way, this is the way to do it. And so some people are saying, but I'm not getting well. I'm not getting well. Yeah, but that's not the point. This is the way we're supposed to, this is the prescribed way we should be living. We should be living to be in harmony with all of his laws, his moral laws and his health laws. And we're not going to always, I don't have perfect health. I'm way better than I was in my 30s. Now that I'm now that I'm in my 70s, I am healthier. If you measure every single thing, cancer, this, that, and the other, I am healthier in every one of those measurements than I was in my mid-30s. Where I had heart, as a matter of fact, I remember when I was 55, I stopped going to doctors, and I had a kid at the age of 53. I know you feel sorry for me. I'm an old man with young kids. I have a 18-year-old and a 14-year-old. I'll put a little jar out here. I know you want to contribute, when I was in my 30s, I was having all these heart palpitations, and I forgot this particular heart thing that they told me that I had. A heart murmur. And I remember when I was 55, and the only reason that I went, because I stopped going to doctors after I learned, they don't talk like this. So at 55, I had to get insurance, and I remember telling the doctor, he said, well, what preconditions do you have? And I said, well, I have a heart murmur. Now, my blood pressure was terrible. My cholesterol was over 300, all those kind of things. Now, I expected all those things, but I thought I still had heart murmur. There's no heart murmur. The heart murmur went away. So a lot of those things, and I wouldn't know because I didn't go to doctors. And basically, I just came to the conclusion, if this is the right way to live, it's like, if you're out there, you're not going to be playing the numbers and selling drugs. In your civil life, you want to live right. So I just wanted to live right. And in my particular case, it helped. Now, because of some genetic preconditions, I will never be as healthy as some of you guys out there. You just are ahead. But I'm doing pretty good. Way better than I was doing at half the age. That's the point I'm making. So that's why you do this. It's more than just because it's the irrefutable evidence of its superiority, but it's because by creation and redemption, this is the right thing to do. Let me show you what my favorite author outside of the Bible says. Fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, and grains impart a strength, a power of endurance, and a vigor of intellect that are not afforded by a more complex and stimulating diet. And I was on that complex and stimulating diet. As a matter of fact, I used to get chronic bronchitis when I was younger, and not only am I an old man with young kids, but I'm a poor man's son. So my whole objective was to go to college, get a good job, so I can eat meat every day. I can have steak. Steak was a luxury for me. And then as I got older, then when I was in my 20s, I had a nice job at IBM. I was able to have by the time I was in my 30s, if I didn't change, I wouldn't be in front of you today. I'm convinced of it. There's no doubt about it. If I look at my genetics, let me just give you an example. My genetic grandparents on my mother's side both died in their mid-50s of one a heart attack and the other from another heart disease. One of my cousins, he was born with holes in his heart. So our family has health issues. So the point I'm making is this does work. My favorite author also says, now she said this over 100 years ago. You can see why she's my favorite author. As a matter of fact, in her book, Counsels on Diets and Foods, I recommend it highly. I have a book called Basic Principles of Total Health that the moderator ran off with. But basically what I've done, I've taken a lot of what I've read, and I've read well over hundreds of books on nutrition, and tried to distill it in 100 pages. Just like you see this hierarchy of nutrients, everything that I learned, you can see that this is a paradigm that you can do a lot. But she said this over 100 years ago. In grains, fruits, vegetables, and nuts are to be found all the food elements that we need. Now, it took over 100 years for our learned scientific community and the American Dietetic Association say it is the position of the American Dietetic Association that appropriately plan, whatever that means, vegetarian diets, including total vegetarian or vegan diets, are healthful, nutritionally adequate, and may provide health benefits in the prevention and treatment of certain diseases. Now, I don't know what diseases it doesn't work for, but I'm telling you what they say. Well-planned vegetarian diets are appropriate for individuals during all stages of the life cycle, including pregnancy, lactation, infancy, childhood, adolescence, and even for athletes. I have a whole section in my book on world-class athletes who follow this point, who follow this irrefutable, evident, plant-based diet. You know, there was only one person that, you know, the Ironman. The Ironman is one of the most rigorous events out there. You have to swim 2.4 miles, and then you bike for 60 miles, and then you have to run a marathon, 26 miles. I remember at the age of 45, I started in my 40s doing this, and at 45, I did the equivalent of half an Ironman. I was working full-time also, traveling to Japan and Europe and all that, so I was working on all that. I did equivalent of half one. But basically, there's nobody that's won the Ironman twice, except one person. He won it 6 times. He was a vegetarian. Nobody's won it twice. And I have him, and I have the world bench press champion, vegetarian. I remember when I was in California and I worked with the Oakland Raiders, some of those football players. As a matter of fact, I remember one, he was 6'7". He was a vegetarian. And he was sending other people from the football team to come in. And he said, don't tell them that I'm a vegetarian. and I said, why? You know, I was curious. And he said, well, when he was in the 6th grade, people used to pick on him. And I looked at this guy, 6 foot, 6'7", 200. I said, nobody's picking on you these days. You know what his answer was? He said, I know, but I found out it's a competitive advantage. So he figured out in a lot of athletes, and you know, there's only one person that's won the 100 meters after the age of 30, set the world record, Carl Lewis. And he did it by going back to a full vegetarian diet. And there's just many of those examples, and I point to some of them. So, in the interest of time, let's look at making a transition to outrageous health, okay? So wherever we are, how do we go back and reclaim that dynamic vitality that is our inheritance? It's ours, and we can take it back. Okay. Anybody recognize that? That's not the hierarchy of nutrients. That's the food pyramid. See, they focus on grains. That's in the middle. A lot of people believe this. Now, you can start to see why there's problems with this. And they do give a little bit of service to the fruits and vegetables. And they, you know, in 1988, when they first came out with the pyramid, they didn't have any milk, no dairy, no meat. Did you know that? None. But the lobby was so strong that they basically kind of snuck it back in there. And then up here, eating sparingly, other things. Now, you see different variations, but most of them, if you look at it, they lead out with grains, and then they go to vegetables. And then fruit is third. So basically, for the hierarchy of nutrients, the food pyramid that I like to propose is that looks like this. The fruits. And then they're saying how many servings, 7. Who knows that? What's 5 servings of beans? What's 2 servings? Do you know what that is? So I'm going to make it real easy for you. This is, remember, abundantly supplied, easily available. This is easy to understand. Seasonal fruits, eat as much as you like. Anything hard about that? Eat as much as you like. It's a comfort level. See, one thing about whole foods is there's in the brain, when you eat whole foods, there's a mechanism that kind of turns off and says, I've had enough. When you're eating whole foods, that mechanism doesn't work when you're eating processed foods. It's turned off. That's why you can eat 20 bags of potato chips. You can eat 20 potatoes worth of potato chips, but you can't eat 1 potato. Try it. Try to eat a whole potato. If I gave you a quarter of a potato and raw, and I gave you the other, I said, Dr. Sharp, this is fine. I got it. I got all that water content. I'm full. Boy, I'm satisfied. But you can take 20 potatoes worth of potato chips, and you're still eating 2 hours later. So, seasonal vegetables, eat as much as you like. So fruit and vegetables is the basis of the diet. And then rice, yams, potatoes, whole grains. In this area, eat based on your requirements and capacities. So if you have 4th stage cancer, or if you have Alzheimer's, or if you have Ebola, or if you have some other health issue, you need to be a little bit light here and be majoring over here. I'm going to tell you some powerful things. I'm going to show you some chemotherapy. Based on this, that'll knock your socks off. I think that's Thursday. So you can actually make this be your medicine. If you can use this to reverse diseases, prevent them, and if you have questions, I'll show you how you don't have to worry about Ebola, you don't have to worry about the flu, you don't have to worry about cancer, you don't have to worry about heart disease, none of these things. A lot of people, I run competitive track and field with the Senior Olympics, and so these guys are always running for these tests and doing this cholesterol, and they ask me, say, you don't go for checkups? For what? If I'm going to go in there they're not going to tell me this. Why am I going in there? And so they're running in there, and yet you can save yourself a lot of money. I have what is called Mack truck insurance. And I'm seeing some insurance that some of my clients were paying like $1,200 a month. I pay like $200, $300. That's because I'm a family of 4. You know what mine costs? 0. A few years ago, I said, why am I paying for insurance? It's easier for me to pay out of pocket for the things that I need, like for dentists, this, that, and the other thing. I spend about $300 or $400, maybe $1,000, $1,500 a year for all of my medical requirements. Why would I pay $1,200 a month and then have a deductible? And like I said, if it wasn't for the kids, I wouldn't even have that. So all of these things, and then all these things up here, you eat sparingly. Now, I say that because I want to be politically correct, and I don't want to be chased out of places where they invite me to do presentations. But if you look real closely, I'm saying, some of them you need to avoid completely. All right? We'll talk about this later on Wednesday. We're going to have a little bit more fun. Okay. So, let's look at 10 practical considerations now for eating right. Okay? 10 practical considerations. Now, a lot of these things, who's that ran off with my book then? It's probably trying to sell it and going to be hawking it in the back. Highest bidder. Now, all of this is in there. I see some of you taking notes. It's all in there, all the hierarchy of nutrients and a lot of things that I talk about. But anyhow, here's 10 practical considerations. And it's free on my website. Okay? So, for eating right. Okay, first one is eat whole foods only. Just shop around the outside. Do 80% of your shopping around the outside or farmers markets. I remember when I was in California, I really had a good time. And that's when I first made the changes, when I was living over there. And you can go to a farmer's market and you can get all kinds of, I would get like 5 pounds of oranges for like $3, 10 pounds for $5. I remember with my first kid, we had a midwife. And 60% of my wife's diet was oranges. And I remember the midwife saying, "You can't do that." She was 37. And they said, you'll get preeclampsia and all this other kind of stuff. So basically what they take the blood test. And I said, "How does the test look?" And they said, "Oh, it looks fine." And so what you get tired of arguing with people. So we put in there, we had 4 ounces of chicken, this, that, and the other. She said, and then she said, "Wow, thank you so very much. I know how hard it was for you to compromise and to add this in, but look at these results." And first son was like 7 pounds, 10 ounces, perfect. And she was saying it'll take 3 or 4 days in labor, less than 5 hours. Second one was less than 45 minutes. So all of these things, and this was a midwife. My wife went to the doctor once after she got pregnant. And I basically, when she got pregnant, she said, "Jimmy, I'm going to the doctor." I said, "Why?" "People have been having babies for thousands of years. What are you going for?" "You said you're pregnant." He said, "All they're going to do is going to be in an undignified area in a room with all stirred up and exposed." She went there. She said, "You shouldn't have said anything." She never went again. That was her last visit. We got the midwife in the second. She did the second one. They were both home births, so she didn't. After a while, you can save so much money and so much aggravation. And this is simple stuff, and it's free. Air, water, sunlight, and it takes a little bit of work to get the vegetation, etc. And I'm a little bit out of my habitat. So I don't have my little stores around, so I'm over here panicking, trying to run to Mom's to find some food. All these little. So, but the key is eat whole foods only, whatever it is. Even meat is a whole food. Not that chicken fingers. I don't know what that stuff is. I'm talking about real. Now, I'm not advocating that you eat meat, but if you're going to eat whole. And it should be organic if possible, antibiotic and hormone-free. But eat less sugary dairy and flesh foods as much as possible. And then third, eat no diet foods. People eating these diet foods and it doesn't work. We don't have time to go through all the issues with that. And then eat healthy snacks. When I go to these track meets, I take my honey, I got my little almond butter and my dates and figs, instant energy, and sometimes it gets real hot. And I run like 5, 6, 7 events. And these guys, after 2 or 3 events, they're over and they're dehydrated. This is powerful stuff. It really does work. And then, here's a real good tip here. Eat a large salad before eating or going out. Because if you're hungry, then everything looks good. So these are just some practical tips, okay? And then, on the other side, there's 2 sides to eating. We're going to talk about the other side, part of the other side tomorrow. But there's eating the right foods. That's what we talked about. These last 45 minutes, and I'm coming to an end very quickly. Last 30, 35, 40 minutes. So we talked about eating the right foods. This is eating things right. Drink lots of water between meals. Allow 4 to 6 hours between meals. Don't eat late at night. All these are laws of physiology. We'll talk about that a little bit tomorrow when we talk about food combining. We're going to talk about this. This is important. And I'm going to talk about a very, very important principle that most Americans violate, big time. And you'll see the key to why some people with these mono diets on 100% potato and rice, why they're doing better than we are. So we're going to learn some very important principles about food combining, and then learn to and apply God's natural health laws. We're going to talk about that in further detail. You're going to see how all diseases are created. The 7 categories that all diseases fit in. I'm going to show you a really nice, easy way of looking at health you don't have to know any Greek. You don't have to know any Latin. You don't have to know about any itises or any. I'm going to show you a real simple way of trying to understand all different disease processes. And so, in summary, a diet of fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, grains provides the best sources of nutrient requirements. Meat, dairy, sugar, and all processed foods should be avoided as much as possible. And so, God's plan at creation is everything you need to know about nutrition. Now, there might be some things you want to know, but this is all you really need to know. To have dynamic, and then you have a smile like this guy over here. I used to wear my hair like that when I was in IBM. But this is what will give you dynamic vitality. And what I tried to do is to pull all that information that out there, all that stuff that I've learned over the last 30, 40 years, and show you in 45 minutes irrefutable evidence for the superiority of the plant-based diet. Now, if I made some mistakes here, so some things I didn't consider, please put it on your card, and I will fix my presentation. And I will report it to the next group that I do this with. But I don't think there's anything that's more powerful than this. And so the lesson is eat a plant-based diet. And you'll add 15 to 30 productive. You see it? You ever see anybody as handsome as that? I was in the 300-meter hurdles in the national championships in July. I had a whole bunch of other pictures, but Lisa said, "Why are you doing all this stuff? You have me jumping up in the air and all that kind." But anyhow, and you will be able to add 15 to 30. Health, vitality, all of that. And it's your health. It's your choice. You determine what you want to do. I've made my choice. I hope I've given you some food for thought, and that that I helped to show you the most powerful diet known to man and irrefutable evidence. As I said, I have my book. I also have another book that I'm not going to be running around selling or anything, but I do have them. And I have a natural recipe book that has over 200 meals that you can use following these principles. And I have a school where you can learn about this. You can become a certified nutritionist, certified herbalist, certified medical missionary, or get a bachelor's, master's, or doctorate in this information. So that's what I wanted to cover. I think I made my 45 minutes. And as I said, for the questions, for any of your questions, write them down. And what I will do is, when I get them, this presentation this really is a 2-hour presentation, an hour and a half, 2 hours, and I have all kinds of things on protein, this, that, and the other thing, and further proving. But in the time allotted, I tried to hit some of the salient points, some of the key points. And as I said, in my book, I know what I want to say. There's a book, Proof Positive. This was written by a medical doctor, Dr. Neil Nedley. It's Proof Positive. I got my title from his book. In his book, Proof Positive, it demonstrates the superiority of the plant-based diet that I just talked about. And it goes into all those protein requirements and how you reverse cancer and AIDS and heart disease and all those kinds of things. So put your questions in, and we'll make the appropriate modifications. Or if we have a question and answer session, I'll do the best I can to answer a lot of those. So that's what I wanted to cover. I want to thank you for your time and kind attention. I hope it was helpful to you. I want to thank you again for coming out on this beautiful, balmy evening to help me have fun. I enjoy doing this, and I hope it was helpful to you as some degree of helpfulness as it was for me in trying to share this information. So again, thank you for your time and kind attention. Tomorrow will be food combining, and then we'll talk about the most powerful system known to man for preventing and reversing all diseases. We're going to talk about cancer. We're going to talk about heart disease. We're going to talk about children issues, and we're going to talk about the kidneys, the brain. Okay? How to get the highest functional integrity out of this. And how it can not only enhance your physical, but also your spirituality as well. This is a very important organ up here. So that's what the plan is for the rest of this week. Thank you again.